Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Heroic Super Guide for Heroic Vaelastrasz from Blackrock Mountain. Now, Vaelastrasz, I find one of the more fun, cool bosses to take on in Heroic mode. He can definitely be frustrating, but when you have the right deck, there's actually quite a lot of thought you put into in exactly how to maximize your damage. So the general strategy you're using is running a ton of very cheap cards like 0, mostly 1 mana, sometimes a 0 mana or sometimes a 2 mana, maybe like 1 finisher like Leroy. But basically you want to fill your deck with a ton of 1 drops, which tend to be sort of in a relative proportional way the most powerful cards per mana in Hearthstone. And you want to be able to play as many of them because otherwise he'll just mill all your cards. And you want to try sort of figure out how to maximize damage, almost like a damage per second race, so that you can kill him before you lose due to getting milled. But one extra complication is that he has an assortment of giants and big minions like volcanic drakes that he plays, where if you just focus on going face like you need to kill him in time, you'll get counter-punched and killed first. So there's often some very sort of, you need to put a lot of thought into exactly when you trade into his things or prevent him from doing damage with strategic freezes or noble sacrifices, things like that. We'll get into the tools you can use. But yeah, I find it one of the cooler boss fights. A lot of boss fights there's a lot of RNG of sort of like waiting till you draw the cards you really need, or waiting till he doesn't have some game-breaking combo that just gives you no chance. This one really, every game I feel like you make a lot of intelligent decisions, and it's very rewarding when you finally get it right. We're going to start off with Druid, which is actually the class I used to defeat him with basic and common cards only. And this was back in the day when the adventure was out. Not more modern times. So I have an all golden basic and common only deck here. So you'll see Argent Squire, Leponome, some good 1-drops. Undertaker can grow with some of the Death Rattle cards you're playing like Horned Creeper. Abusive Sergeant, great for getting an extra damage. Voodoo Doctor can be helpful for just healing you that extra bit if it's really every point of damage counts, and it does have 2 attack. Worgen Infiltrator does have 2 attack. One other piece of the puzzle he has, which sort of can get in your way of playing lots of very cheap 1-drops with 1 health, is he does run Arcane Missiles and can do things like Implosion, which gets a lot of 1-drops of his out. Innovate's great for letting you play a bunch of stuff initially so that you're not burning those cards but actually getting value. One of the big things Druid has, Omani Berserker, by the way, is a nice potential counter incentive to Arcane Missiles, where you might be able to start hitting with 5 with that. Eventually you want to build a board and then Savage Roar to do tons of damage to burst him down. In the case of Hunter, which I jokingly call Curvestone because your curve is 28 1-drops, other than a single explosive trap and Leroy Jenkins. Yeah, this is the Hunter deck that can take him down. This I did in more modern times, so it has little things like Raptor Hatchling, which helps to 2-1, but also helps stave off a little bit of the damage you'll get from fatigue at the end. Dragon Eggs are a good response to his Arcane Missiles. Glacial Shard to freeze something, to stall it from attacking you in the face for 8 or 6 or whatever. Yeah, Shield Bearer actually I've started adding in. It's a pretty nice addition to chew up some damage and protect your other minions, which you want to keep being able to go face. Timberwolf to be able to buff your things like your beasts like Young Dragonhawk, which you can potentially get Wind Fury on. You could maybe experiment with a Crackling Razor more, but this is pretty solid in your damage per second race. Hunter's Mark, also very good Hunter card for being able to instantly trade into one of his big threats, kill it, and you'll usually have follow-up 1-drops that you'll want to play immediately. In the case of Mage, it's pretty much the same. In this particular deck, I included target dummies as well, similar to the Shield Bearers for keeping them at bay, but they're even cheaper. Grimscale Oracle to act as a buff for your Murloc Raiders. You know, little tweaks which can just get you the extra damage you need. There's Murloc Tidehunters in here as well. Arcane Explosion to help deal with things like Implosion, so you keep him from being able to trade into a lot of your cheap guys. Mirror Image, similar to Target Dummy, helps keep him at bay. You have your freeze in the form of Ice Lance, very nice. Though nowadays, actually, you could run Freezing Potion even better because it's cheaper, and that's all you're using it for. Probably not using it for the damage. And one Fireball to be able to finish off a little burst of damage for 4 mana. Paladin back in the day, similar to the other themes, Avenge is a great one for when, you know, if he Arcane Missiles and kills one of your cheap dudes, it buffs something else to be able to do even more damage progressively. You have some very cheap buffs like Blessing of Might, Humility to deal with his more dangerous guys and neutralize them, Noble Sack to be able to, again, save one of their big attacks from going to your face or killing a minion you care about, Repentance, again, very good. By the way, some of these spells are good because when things are going well, you'll often flood the board and just have 7 minions out and not actually be able to play out your 1-drop. So having a few spells fits in nicely as well. So yeah, given your Repentance stuff, that's also why Elven Archer is in there to be able to insta-shot the things you do set to 1 health. And Annoyatron I haven't explicitly called out in the earlier decks, but it does appear a lot. The fact that it takes 2 hits to clear it out is a good way to protect your minions. My Modern Priest deck follows the exact same formula. The only real unique things to this particular deck, we have Binding Heals to be able to restore minions you care about and also save you some health, because sometimes it is a damage per second race where you want extra damage to his face while preventing you from taking lethal. Power Word Glory similarly will fit nicely on his minions. Mistress of Mixtures like Zombie Chow, you want to get out as early as possible so that it's not healing him while he has armor. You're just getting the taking down his armor nicely early on. Shadow Bomber's a nice early one to do extra 3 damage to him, and you know, if you're gonna win, you care more about getting damage to him than saving it for yourself. One Light Warden to pair with the Light of Naru to be able to get things out that if you are healing with things like Binding Heal, you're getting extra damage going to his face as a result. The Rogue deck I used back in the day, you have very cheap 0 mana spells which are amazing for being able to empty out your hand in the form of Backstab, prepping out something like Gang Up, which will put more things in your deck that help you not take fatigue damage, Sap to clear out his big things for cheap that can also be prepped, Betrayal, often if he has 3 big dudes, you kill 2 of them with this card, which can help a lot, and Shadow Step to be able to get some of these minions back, like Defias Ringleader, and get extra things on board. That's the deck. In the case of Shaman, there's very little out of the kind of tools I've already talked about. Murloc Tiny Fins for some very cheap 0 drops out. And because of the existence of Evolve, it does help you to be able to get even more guys out for cheap, like the 0 drops. A board of 1 drops that becomes 2 drops can do quite a lot more damage, start getting into the 3 attack realm, etc. We also have Tunnel Trog and Crackle, which can, you know, if you're lucky, do quite a bit of damage, and Flame Tongue Totem, a great way to get a bunch more damage potentially. Bloodlust at 5, a little too expensive. You could potentially put it in for Leroy. It probably makes more sense than Leroy actually, because usually you will have quite a few things out on the board, so it'll do more damage than Leroy would. So I think I would make that sub, and the Frost Shocks and Glacial Shards double tools for being able to freeze his big dudes that want to hit you in the face. In the case of Warlock, which was the original class to just swarm the board with cheap minions, we also have tools like Corruption to guarantee a kill on some of his scarier minions. Flame Imp to play early can then do a lot of damage to his face compared to most of your 1-drops. Freeze with Glacial Shard, Persist Villager, nice sticky minion. Power Overwhelmings and Soulfires give you quite a bit of reach together with 1 Leroy to finish him off at the end. Soulfire also, you know, empties out your hand. You know, in this kind of matchup, you really don't care about the card you're discarding. And Void Walkers and Target Dummies and a Shield Bearer to help protect your minions so that you can keep doing that damage to face. And of course, one combo I didn't mention, Power Overwhelming, can go really well with Young Dragonhawk to provide a lot of burst if you do manage to get that combo off. Last but not least, we have Warrior. Similar tools with Inner Rage to be able to buff something to do even more damage, a Horned Creeper to provide you more minions out. We have some weapons like Fiery War Axe that are a lot of good value. It's basically 6 damage for 2 mana. Execute, while it's more expensive now, is just still worth it because of its ability to help finish off those big minions that are threats to you. Whirlwind is tricky because obviously you don't use it when you have a bunch of 1-drops out, but if he does have an implosion out, you want to clear the board to protect your own dudes. Upgrade can go very well on a Fiery War Axe to get you 12 damage for 3 mana. And finally, this one has, on the more expensive side, Gromash. It's risky, you often won't make it to turn 8, but I think I probably threw it in more for fun than anything, the potential to suddenly be able to slam him for 10 damage at the end. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how to take out Heroic Vaelastrasz with every single class, and even with a deck of basic and common cards only. We looked at that Druid deck at the very beginning. Even for very cheap, you can take him out very reliably. Good luck, see you next time.